You are here because, at some quiet point in the night, or perhaps in the middle of a mundane Tuesday, you realized that waiting for someone else to provide the validation you didn't get as a child is a cycle that keeps you perpetually tethered to the past. It is a heavy, quiet realization, one that feels like a sudden, hollow drop in the stomach, the kind that makes you catch your breath. It is the realization that you have been standing in the doorway of your own life, hand outstretched, hoping someone would walk through it and finally tell you that you are seen, that you are enough, and that you are safe. But there is a profound, almost startling power in the moment you decide to stop looking outward at the empty doorway and start looking inward at the person standing right there in the room with you. You are essentially realizing that you have been holding your own hand this whole time, even if you did not know it, even if you were gripping your own fingers so tightly to keep yourself upright that your knuckles turned white. This process of turning toward yourself is not about blaming those who came before you. It is about acknowledging the specific, lonely weight of what was missing. It is about honoring the child within you who learned to survive by being very, very quiet, or by being exceptionally helpful, or by becoming a shadow so as not to cause any trouble. That child is still there, living in the nervous system of your adult body, still waiting for the kind of consistent, unshakable love that says, I am here, I am not going anywhere, and I am not afraid of your big feelings. When you start to acknowledge this need, it can feel overwhelming. It might feel like you are asking for the moon when you just wanted a cup of water. But self-parenting begins with the radical honesty of saying, yes, I missed out. Yes, it hurt. And yes, it is now my responsibility to create the warmth that was never offered. This is not a burden. It is an inheritance you are finally claiming. It is the act of stepping into the driver's seat of a vehicle you've been riding in as a frightened passenger for years. You might feel a strange resistance to this. You might feel like you are a fraud, pretending to be an adult in charge of a child who is still crying. But consider this. You have survived until this very moment. You have navigated complex emotions, losses, and changes, all while carrying a backpack full of unaddressed needs. That requires a resilience that is nothing short of miraculous. Now, you are simply shifting that resilience toward yourself. You are choosing to stop treating yourself like an inconvenient house guest in your own body and start treating yourself like a beloved treasure that has finally been found. This acknowledgement is the bedrock. Without it, you are just trying to build a house on shifting sand. You have to admit that you were hungry, and you have to admit that you are the only one who can now walk to the kitchen and prepare the meal. It is a slow, tender transition. Some days, you will be great at it. Other days, you will forget, and you will find yourself back at the doorway, waiting for someone to come fill the void. And when that happens, you don't judge yourself. You simply acknowledge it again. You say, "Oh, I see you. I see that you are still hoping for someone else to fix this. It's okay. I'm here. I've got you. This is the start of a friendship that will last for the rest of your life. It is the beginning of the end of your loneliness, because no matter where you go, no matter how difficult the day becomes, you are now coming home to a person who is finally on your side. You are no longer just surviving the passage of time. You are creating a sanctuary within your own heart, brick by brick, moment by moment. You are finally, truly arriving. Think about those moments when the world feels just a little too loud, or a decision feels impossibly heavy, and you feel an unexplainable surge of panic, or a sudden, desperate need to hide when things get even slightly difficult. These are not character flaws. They are not signs that you are too much or too sensitive. These are gaps. They are the specific, carved-out spaces where you needed a steady, calm, consistent presence to hold space for your fear. But that presence was not there. You were left to handle the size of your own emotions with the limited tools of a younger, smaller version of yourself. We often spend our adult lives running from these moments, or trying to fill those gaps with things that never quite satisfy, trying to earn validation through work or perfection, or by shrinking ourselves to make others comfortable. We treat these feelings like invaders, like something we need to exile from our inner world. But they are not invaders. They are echoes. They are the sound of that younger version of you still trying to figure out if it is safe to be seen. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This is exactly what happens when we leave these gaps unaddressed. We carry this unconscious sense of not enoughness into our jobs, our friendships, and our quietest moments, and we interpret the resulting friction as fate. We tell ourselves that feeling abandoned, unseen, or constantly on edge is just the way our life is scripted. We tell ourselves that some people are just meant to struggle, and that perhaps we are one of them. But it is not fate. It is simply a lack of the specific kind of care you needed back then, which you can now, with patience and intention, learn to provide for yourself. When you identify the gap, you stop blaming yourself for the instability. You stop looking at your panic and saying, "Why can't I just be normal?" And start saying, I see. I feel this way because I wasn't taught how to hold my own hand through the fire." When you make the unconscious conscious, you take the power away from the fate that seemed to dictate your misery. You begin to see that these reactions are just old survival mechanisms that are no longer serving you. You start to recognize the difference between a present-day challenge and an old, familiar echo. It is a deeply vulnerable realization to admit that there is a gap. It means stopping the pretense that everything was okay, or that you don't need anything from anyone. It means looking at the empty spaces in your history with a compassionate eye, rather than a critical one. You don't have to be angry at what was missing to acknowledge that it was missing. You are simply naming the reality of your experience so that you can finally start to fill those empty spaces with the presence that you are now capable of offering yourself. By defining the gap, you are finally giving yourself a map. You are no longer stumbling in the dark, wondering why you keep tripping over the same obstacles. You are looking at the ground, seeing the uneven path, and deciding that you are finally going to be the one to help yourself across it. You are shifting from the position of a victim of your past to the architect of your own healing, one conscious realization at a time. This is the moment where you reclaim your agency. You are saying, I am the one who understands what I needed, and I am the one who is going to provide it. The first practical tool in this journey is what I call the observer position. It sounds clinical, but it is actually one of the most tender things you can do for yourself. When you feel that old, familiar ache, that sudden tightening in your throat, that feeling of being completely overwhelmed by a conversation, or that paralyzing fear that you've done something wrong, your first instinct is almost always to jump into the fire. You react. You spiral. You criticize yourself for being so dramatic, or you shut down completely to protect yourself from the hurt. I want you to try something different. When that wave hits, I want you to mentally step back just a few inches. Imagine yourself as a separate, neutral, and deeply kind adult standing right beside the version of you that is hurting. You are not trying to fix the feeling immediately, and you are definitely not trying to talk yourself out of it. You are simply witnessing it. You are moving from being the one lost in the storm to being the one holding the lantern that illuminates the storm. When you are in the middle of a moment where you feel small or scared, try saying to yourself, I see that you are experiencing a lot of fear right now. Just that. You aren't judging the fear. You are acknowledging it. You are essentially acting as the witness to your own life that you never had. Think about what a truly supportive, grounded person would do it if they saw you crying or struggling. They wouldn't tell you to stop. They wouldn't tell you you were being silly. They would just be there. They would let you know that your presence is valid, that your emotions are real, and that you are not alone in the middle of them. This observer position is the bridge between your past reactions and your future growth. By becoming the observer, you create a tiny bit of space between who you are and what you are feeling. That space is where your freedom lives. If you are entirely consumed by the feeling, if you are the fear itself, you are powerless to do anything about it. But when you are the one observing the fear, you have a choice. You can say to your internal self, I understand why you are reacting this way. You've been here before, and it was scary then, but I am here now. You are safe with me. This is the start of building an internal dialogue. It is the beginning of realizing that you possess an inner resource that is stronger than any feeling of abandonment or inadequacy. The observer is not a judge. It is not an evaluator. It is simply a calm, consistent witness that says, I see you. You are having a human experience right now. and that is okay. You can practice this in small ways. When you find yourself getting irritated in traffic, or feeling a twinge of jealousy, or experiencing a sudden burst of anxiety, take that deep breath and shift your perspective. Don't fight the feeling. Observe it. Notice where it lives in your body. Does it feel like heat in your stomach? A pressure in your chest? By noticing these details, you are grounding yourself in the present moment. You are pulling yourself out of the chaotic, circular thinking of the past and rooting yourself in the reality of the now. This isn't about ignoring your pain. It's about changing your relationship to it. When you become the observer, you are no longer the victim of your own nervous system. You are becoming the caretaker of it. You are saying to your inner world, I am not afraid of you. I am not going to run away from you. I am going to stay right here and hold space until this wave passes. And the beauty is, every time you do this, every time you choose to observe rather than collapse, you are building a stronger, more resilient foundation. You are proving, moment by moment, that you are the safe harbor you have been searching for all along. When we were young, many of us learned to view our own emotions as problems that needed to be solved or hidden away. If our sadness was seen as a burden, or our excitement was met with indifference, we learned to tuck those feelings into the corners of our lives. We developed a reflex, an internal gatekeeper, that says, I shouldn't be feeling this way, or this isn't actually a big deal, so stop reacting. We essentially learned to argue with our own internal experience before we even had a chance to understand it. Self-parenting begins with the radical act of dismantling that gatekeeper. It starts by giving yourself unconditional permission to feel whatever it is you are feeling, without the immediate demand that it be correct, rational, or convenient. Validation does not mean that your feelings are an objective truth about the world. It means that they are a true reflection of your experience, and that alone makes them worthy of respect. Imagine, for a moment, that a friend came to you, visibly shaken by a mistake they made at work. You wouldn't look at them and say, "That's such a stupid thing to be upset about. You're being dramatic." You would likely offer a listening ear. You would say, "I can see why that's bothering you. It's completely understandable to feel frustrated when you've put in so much effort. Why then is it so hard to offer that same grace to yourself?" When you feel that familiar sting of shame or a sudden wave of grief, I want you to pause and speak to yourself with that same gentle authority. Use the simple, honest language of validation. Say out loud, or in the quiet of your mind, "It makes total sense that I feel this way." Notice how that sentence shifts the energy. It doesn't mean you are stuck in the feeling forever, but it validates that the feeling has a source. It tells your nervous system that it is safe to be honest with you. When you stop judging your emotions, you stop the internal war. So often, the pain we feel is not just the original emotion. It's the secondary layer of shame we pile on top of it. We feel sad, and then we feel ashamed for being sad. We feel anxious, and then we feel angry at ourselves for not being stronger. By choosing to validate without judgment, you are stripping away that secondary layer. You are deciding that you are the final authority on your own experience. This practice is the cornerstone of building self-trust. Every time you allow yourself to be exactly where you are sending a message to the younger parts of yourself. You don't have to hide anymore. I'm not going to minimize you, and I'm not going to rush you through this. You are teaching yourself that your internal landscape is a safe place to inhabit. This doesn't mean you have to act on every impulse that comes from a place of distress. It simply means you stop denying the existence of the distress. You acknowledge it. You nod to it. You say, yes, I feel this, and I am capable of holding this. When you validate your own feelings, you are effectively telling yourself that you are worth the effort of understanding. You are no longer looking for someone else to provide the emotional comfort you were denied. You are providing it for yourself, right now, in this exact moment. That is the most profound gift you can give to your own history. We often think of healing as a purely intellectual process, something that happens through reading, analyzing, or talking through our history. But true, lasting change doesn't just happen in the mind. It happens in the body, the place where our earliest experiences were recorded. When you are feeling dysregulated, when your chest feels tight, your palms are sweating, or you feel that buzzing, restless energy of anxiety, your nervous system is essentially sounding an alarm. It is telling you that it feels unsafe, and it is looking for you to do something about it. In those moments, your body doesn't need a complex analysis of why you are hurting. It doesn't need to hear about your childhood or the deep-seated origins of your pain. It needs the basics. It needs the fundamental physical reassurance that you are currently in a secure environment. This is where you step in as the parent you always deserved, the one who notices when you are off balance and provides the concrete, tangible support to bring you back to earth. Ask yourself, with the same curiosity you would extend to a friend or a child, what does my body need right now to feel just 1% safer? Sometimes the answer is remarkably simple. It might be a glass of cool water. It might be the weight of a heavy blanket pulled over your shoulders. It might be the need to step away from your computer screen, walk into a different room, or simply splash some cold water on your face. Perhaps it is as basic as realizing that you haven't moved your body in hours, and that you need to stand up, stretch your arms wide, and feel your feet firmly pressing into the floor. Or maybe it's the need to find a quiet space where you can close your eyes and focus solely on the rhythm of your own breathing for a few minutes. This is the process of learning to listen to your own biological cues. For many of us, the ability to recognize these physical needs was dulled long ago. We were trained to override our discomfort, to push past exhaustion, and to ignore the signals our bodies sent us when we were overwhelmed. Reclaiming that connection is a revolutionary act. When you stop what you are doing to honor a small physical need, like choosing to eat a warm meal instead of skipping it, or deciding to turn off the lights and lie down for a moment of silence, you are sending a clear, repetitive signal to your nervous system. I see you. You matter to me. I am going to take care of you. This consistency is what builds safety. You aren't just treating yourself. You are building a track record of reliability. Each time you notice a physical tension and take an action to alleviate it, you are proving to your internal world that it no longer has to carry the burden of the past alone. You are teaching your body that it has a caretaker and that it is no longer left to fend for itself in a hostile world. As you start to tune into these needs, you might find that you become better at catching the symptoms before they spiral into a full-blown crisis. You learn to recognize the subtle cues, the way your shoulders creep up toward your ears when you are stressed, or the way you hold your breath when you are focusing on a difficult task. You become the attentive parent who notices the signs and steps in to offer comfort before the hurt becomes overwhelming. This is how you ground your healing. It is the practical, physical manifestation of self-love, and it is the most honest way to begin teaching yourself that finally you are safe. As children, many of us existed in an environment where our boundaries were not just ignored. They were often invisible. We may have been taught that our no was an inconvenience, or that our need for space was a rejection of others. Perhaps we learned that to be loved, we had to be available, compliant, and ready to absorb the moods of the adults around us. We grew up with the mistaken belief that having a boundary was an act of hostility, rather than what it truly is, an act of preservation. When you begin the practice of self-parenting, you have to realize that you are now the primary guardian of your own time, your own energy, and your own peace. You are the gatekeeper. Setting boundaries is not about being cold or pushing people away. It is about recognizing the limits of your own internal resources. You are acknowledging that you are not an infinite well. You have a finite amount of presence, care, and emotional capacity to give in any given day. And protecting that is how you ensure that you have something left for yourself. Start by looking at the areas of your life where you consistently feel drained, resentful, or small. Often, these are the places where a boundary has been missing for years. It might be in a friendship where you feel like you are always the one providing support, but never the one being held. It might be in a work culture that demands your constant attention. It might even be in the way you interact with digital spaces that leave you feeling depleted and compared to others. Setting a boundary can feel terrifying at first because it requires you to stand behind your own needs. When you say, "I can't do that right now," or "I need to take some space from this conversation," there is a flicker of fear that you are doing something wrong, that you are being selfish or unkind. You must learn to talk yourself through this fear, just as a patient parent would guide a child. Remind yourself, saying no to this is saying yes to my own well-being. It is not an attack on the other person. It is a commitment to my own stability. You don't have to offer long, complicated explanations for your boundaries. In fact, the more you justify yourself, the more you are signaling that you believe your boundaries require permission. They don't. You can be firm and kind at the same time. You can hold your space with a steady, quiet dignity. When you set a boundary, you are signaling to yourself that you are finally important enough to be protected. You are teaching your own system that you are no longer a person who is subject to the whims and demands of everyone else. This practice extends into your daily habits as well. Consider how you handle your own time. Do you give your best energy to everyone else while saving only the exhausted, nighttime version of yourself for your own healing work? Setting a boundary with your time might mean carving out an hour of your day that is completely yours. No phones, no chores, no obligations to anyone. It is a sacred window where you exist solely to be with yourself. When you start to hold these lines, the people around you may be surprised, and that is okay. They were used to a version of you that was always open and always yielding. As you change, the dynamics will inevitably shift. Some people will respect your new boundaries, and some will struggle with them. Through it all, your task is to remain the parent to yourself. You stay anchored. You keep your promises to yourself. You treat your own boundaries as inviolable, not because you want to control others, but because you are finally building a life where your own nervous system can rest. You are teaching the world how to treat you. But more importantly, you are teaching yourself that you are finally worth the effort of being defended. The reason we often feel so adrift, like a ship without an anchor, when we are deep in the process of healing, is because our internal structures were never solidified in the first place. When you grew up in a world that felt unpredictable, or where your needs were met sporadically, you learned to live in a state of constant, low-level vigilance. You learned that the ground could shift at any moment. As an adult, this translates into a deep-seated feeling of being untethered, a sense that if you aren't constantly prepared for a disruption, you will be swept away. This is where the power of routine becomes a form of medicine. We aren't talking about rigid, punishing schedules that make you feel like you're back in a classroom. We aren't talking about hustle culture or productivity for the sake of accomplishment. We are talking about the creation of small, reliable rituals that communicate one vital truth to your system. I am here. I am consistent. And I am not going to leave you. Consistency is the language of safety. When you show up for yourself at the same time, in the same way, over and over again, you are effectively retraining your nervous system to expect a steady, reliable presence. You are building a foundation of trust that is stronger than any amount of past chaos. Think of it as creating a series of small, safe harbors in your day. Maybe it is the simple act of making your bed the moment you wake up. It seems minor, but it is a promise you make to yourself that you keep. It is a way of saying, I care about the environment I live in, and I care about how I start my day. Maybe it is the ritual of drinking a cup of warm tea in the morning, sitting in a specific chair, and just staring out the window for 5 minutes before you check your phone. It is a way of signaling to your mind that there is a border between rest and the world. These routines do not need to be grand. In fact, they work best when they are microscopic. It is the evening ritual of putting away your clothes so that your morning self doesn't have to scramble. It is the habit of writing down one thing that went well, no matter how small, as a way of training your brain to see your own efforts. When you do these things consistently, you aren't just checking off a list. You are weaving a fabric of reliability into your day. If you skip a day, the world won't end. You won't have failed your healing. A good parent knows that life is messy and that things happen. The beauty of a routine is that you can always return to it. If you have a chaotic day where everything falls apart, the next morning you can simply return to the ritual. The routine is not a cage. It is a homecoming. It is the place you return to when you need to feel grounded again. When you have these small, predictable rhythms, the survivor part of you, the part that is always bracing for impact, can finally begin to soften. It realizes that it doesn't have to be on high alert all the time, because you have taken care of the details. You have created a container for your life. You are finally living with intention. And that intention is fueled by your desire to nurture yourself. By building these rituals, you are shifting from a life that happens to you to a life that you are actively building for yourself. You are proving that you are a person who can be counted on. That internal sense of reliability is the ultimate antidote to the feeling of being lost. It gives you the space to breathe, to grow, and to finally feel at home in your own skin, knowing that no matter what the day brings, you have these small, sacred anchors that keep you steady. We all carry an internal voice that sounds like a stern, disappointed, or even cruel authority figure. This is the inner critic, that relentless narrator that steps in the moment you make a mistake, or even before you try something new, whispering that you are failing, that you aren't doing enough, or that your efforts are fundamentally flawed. For many of us, this voice is an echo of the criticism we received in our early years. It is the internalization of the judgment we were once subjected to, a protective mechanism that mistakenly believes that if it beats you to the punch, it can shield you from the pain of external rejection. But this critic is a false protector. It keeps you small, it keeps you afraid, and it keeps you in a state of perpetual self-doubt. Carl Jung noted that the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. You cannot reach that destination while this voice is acting as a gatekeeper, blocking your path with lists of all the ways you are supposedly inadequate. To move forward, you must first recognize that the critic is not you. It is just a script you were taught to recite. When that voice begins its familiar routine, telling you that you are foolish for trying to heal, or that you are too slow, or that your attempts at self-parenting are just an act, I want you to pause. Do not argue with the voice. That only gives it more oxygen. Instead, label it. Say to yourself, "That is my critic talking." Just by naming it, you create a separation. You are showing yourself that you are the one observing the voice, not the voice itself. Then, try this. Ask yourself, Would I say this to a friend who was trying their best to learn something new? If your friend came to you and said, "I'm trying to be kinder to myself, but I feel like I'm doing it wrong," you would never respond with, "You are failing, you're not doing enough, you're hopeless." You would offer patience. You would encourage them. You would remind them that they are learning a brand new language and that mistakes are part of the process. This is the core of self-parenting, turning that same compassion toward yourself. When the critic screams, "You are a mess," you gently reply, "I am a person in the middle of a complex healing process, and I am doing the best I can." When the critic says, "This isn't working," you answer, "It is working, because I am showing up for myself." And that is a success. You are effectively replacing a voice of fear with a voice of presence. This takes practice. It will not happen overnight. There will be days when the critic feels louder than your own sense of self-worth. In those moments, don't judge yourself for listening. Just recognize it again. "Oh, the critic is very loud today. It's trying to keep me safe by keeping me small, but I don't need that protection anymore." You are essentially rewiring a deeply embedded neural circuit. You are teaching your brain that you are no longer a person who needs to be punished into compliance. You are a person who deserves to be encouraged into growth. Every time you catch that voice and soften it, you are disarming the authority figure that has lived in your head for years. You are reclaiming the throne of your own life. You are the only person who has the right to determine your value. And you are finally deciding that you are worthy of kindness, especially on the days when you feel like you have failed. That is how you silence the critic, not with anger, but with the steady, unshakable truth of your own self-worth. There will be days when you lose your footing. There will be afternoons where you find yourself spiraling into old patterns, where you lose your patience, where you say something you later regret, or where you wake up feeling as though you are back at square one, as if all the work you have done over the past few weeks has simply vanished into thin air. You will have moments where you feel completely defeated, heavy with the weight of your own humanness. This is not a sign of failure. This is not proof that you are incapable of change. This is simply the reality of being human. And it is a fundamental, unavoidable part of the process. The mark of a healthy, supportive parent is not perfection. It is not the ability to prevent mistakes from ever happening. The true hallmark of a good parent and the ultimate expression of self-parenting is the capacity for repair. It is the ability to walk back into the room after an outburst or after a period of withdrawal and say, "I am still here. I am sorry that I lost my way, but I am here, and I am ready to try again." When you slip up, your old conditioning will likely try to force you into a state of shame. It will tell you that you are bad, or that your mistakes have permanently damaged your progress. Do not listen to that voice. Instead, initiate the repair process. Talk to yourself exactly as you would talk to a beloved child who had a difficult moment. Sit with yourself in the quiet. Acknowledge what happened, but do not dwell on the catastrophe of it. Say out loud, I know I reacted poorly today. I know I fell back into that old pattern. I see that it hurt, and I feel the weight of it. But I also see that I am learning. I am still here. I am still trying. And I am still worthy of my own love, even on the days I don't get it right. This act of repair is the most important part of the self-parenting journey. It is the bridge that connects your past self to the future you are trying to create. Every time you consciously choose to repair the relationship with yourself after a mistake, you are teaching your nervous system something profound. You are teaching it that mistakes are not lethal. You are proving that even when things go wrong, the relationship itself is unbreakable. You are providing the safety that you needed as a child, the knowledge that no matter what, you will not be abandoned, and you will not be cast out for being imperfect. By choosing repair over shame, you are changing the very chemistry of your recovery. Shame keeps you paralyzed. It keeps you stuck in the cycle of, I'm not enough. Repair keeps you in motion. It moves you forward with the wisdom gained from the stumble. You are essentially teaching yourself that you have the internal resources to handle the aftermath of any difficulty. You don't have to be perfect to be worthy of care. You only have to be willing to return to yourself. So, when the next mistake happens, and it will, do not rush to punish yourself. Do not rush to hide your face. Instead, offer yourself a moment of grace. Take a deep breath, ground yourself in your own presence, and perform the act of repair. Acknowledge your humanity, hold space for your disappointment, and then gently steer yourself back onto your path. You are building a home within yourself that is resilient enough to withstand the storms. And that is a victory that no single mistake can ever take away from you. You are showing up for yourself, and that is enough. Self-parenting is not a weekend project. It is not a quick fix that you can check off a list, and it is not a destination you reach where you finally become healed and never feel pain again. It is a lifelong practice of showing up. It is the steady, rhythmic, and deeply intentional act of deciding every single morning that you are worth the effort of being understood, being comforted, and being protected. It is a long-term commitment to the person who has been waiting in the quiet for you to finally take the lead. When you commit to this path, you are making a promise to yourself that transcends your moods, your failures, and your history. You are committing to being the person who stays. For many of us, the deepest, most foundational wound was the experience of being left, either physically, emotionally, or through the subtle absence of the validation we needed to grow. To parent yourself is to vow that you will never leave yourself again. It is the act of deciding that no matter what happens, no matter how hard the day is, and no matter how lost you might feel, you will remain present, kind, and anchored within your own heart. This commitment is built in the tiny, invisible moments of your life. It is the moment you choose to soothe your own anxiety instead of numbing it. It is the moment you choose to speak to yourself with tenderness when the world is being harsh. It is the moment you honor your own boundaries, even when it is uncomfortable. Each of these choices is a brick in the foundation of your inner home. You are building a sanctuary within yourself that you never have to leave, a place that is exclusively yours, where you are always safe, always welcome, and always seen. As the years pass, this commitment changes you. It softens the hard edges that you built to survive, and it allows you to stand a little taller, breathe a little deeper, and move through the world with a sense of internal stability that you once thought was impossible. You stop looking for that missing piece in other people because you have finally begun to provide it for yourself. You are no longer just surviving the passage of time. You are actively crafting a life that feels like home. There will be seasons of growth and seasons of stagnation. There will be times when you feel you have mastered this, and times when you feel like you are back at square one. But the long-term commitment doesn't require you to be a master. It only requires you to remain present. It requires you to keep checking in, keep listening, and keep offering that same steady, unconditional care to the version of you that is still learning, still growing, and still finding its way. You are rewriting your history with every act of self-kindness. You are effectively, retroactively providing the love that you didn't receive. You are giving your younger self the safety they deserved. And in doing so, you are becoming the person you needed all along. This is the ultimate gift of the journey. You are finally becoming your own best friend, your own protector, and your own witness. You are going to be with yourself for the rest of your life. Every single day, every single hour, every single moment. That is a long time to spend with someone you haven't been kind to. So, make the decision to shift that dynamic. Make the decision to be a person you actually enjoy being with. Treat yourself with the respect, the patience, and the warmth that you would offer to the person you love most in the world. This is your life. This is your home. And you are finally, truly arriving. You have walked through the steps of acknowledging the gap, witnessing your own pain, and building the foundations of a new internal life. But perhaps the most important thing to remember as you move forward is this: you are not just the person who was hurt, and you are not just the person who is healing. You are the architect of your own future. Self-parenting is not about scrubbing away your past or pretending that the difficult moments never happened. It is about integrating them. It is about taking all the fragments of who you have been, the frightened parts, the resilient parts, the parts that had to grow up too quickly, and the parts that never got the chance to play, and weaving them into a whole. As you continue this work, you may find that the world starts to look different. You will find that you have a new capacity for joy because you are no longer bracing for the next blow. You will find that your relationships change because you are no longer looking for people to complete you. You are looking for people to walk beside you. You will find that when life becomes difficult, you don't panic as easily because you have become your own best source of stability. There is a quiet, steady peace waiting for you on the other side of this commitment. It is the peace of knowing that no matter what life throws your way, you are never going to abandon yourself. You have made the choice to be your own companion, your own advocate, and your own home. So, let this be the start of your real life. Not a life dictated by the survival mechanisms of your past, but a life chosen by the conscious, caring adult you are becoming. The person you were waiting for, the one who would finally understand, protect, and love you exactly as you are. That person is you. And you have been here all along,